So in terms of today's topic, I really want to talk about why we feel recruitment deserves its own suite. And I'll give you a bit of an explanation on why we think about that and sort of bring it a little bit to life, but also give you some insight and some advice on how perhaps you should be looking at how you're organizing the technologies and tools and thinking about your recruitment strategy moving forward. So first of all, recruitment matters. More and more, these organizations, doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's in retail, and you're looking for store managers, store assistants, whether you're in financial services and you need to have people answering the phones and building banking applications, whether you're building technology, recruitment's critical for your success as an organization, and I think that's just a given. But very often, recruitment is kind of a back office function, or it's devalued, or other things are prioritized. And when you look at some of the facts and figures around recruitment, these are significant business impact numbers that are taking place. And very often, when I'm talking to organizations and you ask them about how much you're spending on recruitment, what are you doing with advertising, where are the sort of peaks and troughs of costs, very rarely can a head of recruitment, head of talent acquisition give you some really meaningful data about what's actually happening. It is getting better, but certainly sort of a few years ago, it was particularly dire. So I just want to sort of talk about, what's happening. So, back in the day when I was at Computer People, we had an AS400 system. I'd get a job, come in, I'd do a search, I'd find, I had a candidate database of about 300,000 people. Nobody had touched most of them for about 3 years. Data was really out of date. But a lot's changed. The actual fundamental process of recruiting hasn't changed. You have a job, you need to find a great candidate. But what has changed is sort of twofold. One, it's the sorts of technologies that are being used. So, I wasn't a Rolodex recruiter, I had a recruitment system, but this was before LinkedIn. In fact, when I was working out at St. Albans for Computer People, the only desktop or sort of machine in this office of 26 recruiters which had access to the internet was one terminal sat in the middle of the room, and you would just go there and try out these fledgling job boards which were happening in the sort of early to mid-90s. So it sort of moved through an evolution from staffing into recruitment, and job boards are beginning to come on the scene, and then from the sort of the 2000, 2005, 2010, more and more technologies have been coming into play for recruiters. Okay. And basically what that's doing is it's making it much more complicated for recruiters to cover the bases. And what you're seeing is, and you can see with this quote on here, that recruiters typically are having to use many different sources to deliver the recruitment results that they're looking to achieve for their organization. And it's becoming really quite complex. And last year, there was a piece of research by the firm, and they surveyed their sort of membership, about 8,000 in-house recruiters across the UK. And on average, recruiters are having to use 8 different types of technology. So, whether it's Excel, because you can't get decent reporting out of your ATS, or Outlook, because you're still having to do a lot of interaction with candidates via your email, whether it's the social media, tweeting your jobs, trying to attract people to your brand, engage with people on social media, whether it's your applicant tracking system, whether you're using a job distribution engine like something like Broadbean, if you're having to post your jobs on SharePoint to post your jobs internally, you think about it, these recruiters are having to touch many, many different systems, and it's obviously not optimal. So just for a bit of fun, as I was building out this slide, I've got a little prize. If anybody can tell me what this logo is for. Anybody want to have a guess? No? Shout it out? Okay. So this is a technology business called Pymetrics. They do assessment. So I was just looking for a random logo to throw at the bottom, so I picked them. So first person to shout out this. You got it? Sorry, okay, so let me just grab you something from my behind the scenes. So congratulations, you're now the proud owner of a SmartRecruiters book, and you can keep your drinks hot or cold in this wonderful flask. Yay! There's more. There's an even better giveaway, which I'll talk about at the end. So, getting back on point, it's not simple. Yeah, recruitment, job, candidates, bring them together, kind of simple. How you actually manage this, the tools and technologies you need to actually utilize to be successful has become a lot more complicated. And there's also new challenges. So if you are fortunate enough to be using a piece of technology to manage your recruitment, an applicant tracking system, or a CRM solution to engage with candidates, or whatever else, you start to create data silos. So as a recruiter, you've got your CRM activity. This is where I track my passive candidates. You've got your Facebook page. You've got all this stuff going on. But one of the challenges is that you've got data sit in different parts of your organization or in different types of technologies and tools. And that's going to become a very, very key concern towards the end of this month. The other thing that we see that recruiters are struggling with is this sort of double data entry. So I need to create my job in this system and then need to post it out using that system. Candidates come in via my website or via email. The email ones I now need to rekey into my applicant tracking system. Or when you get to the point of hire, how do you get that candidate that you've built a wonderful relationship with and done a really engaging sort of, recruitment process? Now they need to get into an HR system to actually get paid. Somebody somewhere in your organization is keying that data. And it's pretty time consuming. And the other thing is candidates love them, but they're getting really quite demanding about what they expect from an engagement with an organization. So if they arrive at your career site, or if they engage with you via a chat bot, or if they're sending in an application or they're emailing you, how are you actually delivering them the best candidate experience through that process? And I'm not talking about all the nice stuff, the employer branding, how you sort of nurture people in campaigns and that sort of stuff. I'm just talking about simply, how does Joe Bloggs, as a candidate, go from I'm interested in working for your company through to I'm hired? And because if you're not doing it well, Glassdoor, interesting news, obviously they've just been bought, but Glassdoor is bringing a whole new transparency or a lens on your company. So as a candidate, when I'm out there, and I always try and think like a candidate, if you looked at your process today and put yourself directly into a candidate's shoes or applied yourself for a job, what's it like? Is it simple? Is it mobile? Does it give you a warm feeling? Do you feel that you're getting engagement from the organization? Are there sort of huge gaps in the process where candidates don't hear anything and they start calling you up, sending you an email or whatever? So that candidate journey is incredibly challenging because the behaviors of candidates is changing all the time. 10 years ago, see an ad in the paper or on a job board, fire off your CV, probably via email, and then you waited. Now candidates are used to downloading a program on Netflix, buying themselves a product on Amazon and being delivered the next day, and they don't need any training with these systems. They've got complete transparency. They can see ratings and referrals. You bought this product, you might like this. So candidates, just as a consumer, their expectation of what an organization should be delivering as part of that candidate journey is changing. They're going to be putting more and more pressure on you to perform. And when you add into that mix your competitive positioning, so if you're working for HSBC, and you're competing with Barclays and Lloyds, if I'm a good candidate and I work in the banking sector, I'm going to be asking people I know, I'm going to be connecting through LinkedIn, and when I go to apply, if the process is really poor, I'm just going to go and apply elsewhere. Yeah, I think we all kind of get that. And the final one, and I did smile yesterday because I saw several people saying, oh God, I'm going to steer clear of anything to do with GDPR because it's been really, really hammered home, but we can't escape it. It's happening at the end of the month. I can tell you that it is a huge issue, and it's going to be a huge issue for a lot of organizations. But compliance, the reason that compliance is a challenge is not because somebody dreamt up that there's this new sort of data privacy law and regulation and people need to do it. It's because this happens all the time. Yeah, more and more regulations. Who knows what happens with Brexit? Yeah, we leave the EU. Information Commissioner's Office said, yeah, we've got to kind of copy that GDPR stuff. What, copy it exactly? Copy some of it? What's it going to be? And this happens all the time. And I spent quite a lot of time over my years. I did a couple of years at SuccessFactors when I was just working with the banks. And HSBC bought an LMS. And on day one, with their 300,000 employees, they had to push out 5 mandatory training courses across their learning management system. So that's 1.5 million courses straight out. The funny thing was that the data center actually fell over because that was a huge amount of volume to be pushing through. But the issue is that compliance, if you're in a regulated industry, pharmaceutical, banking, whatever it may be, this is critical. You screw up on this and you're in big, big trouble. When I spoke to HSBC, they were dealing with fines in the billions, legitimately. On their balance sheet, we're putting aside $3 billion for the fines that we know we're going to get from America. So it is something really, really key. And GDPR is really kind of the cherry on the top of this whole sort of compliance issue. Candidates, it's not about just sending an application through. It's, so what data are you keeping? How are you storing it? How are you keeping it secure? What are you doing with it? Yeah. If they've submitted a CV a few months ago, possibly a year ago, the data becomes obsolete. It becomes out of date. And candidates, they're seeing LinkedIn, and they're saying, I maintain my profile in LinkedIn. You're a smart business. Why are you asking me for a CV? Why don't you just use my LinkedIn profile? That's what I keep up to date. I was headhunted last week, and they said, can you send a CV? Not that I was interested. I said, I don't have a CV. I haven't had a CV for 10 years. I maintain my profile on LinkedIn. If you're interested, that's what I do. So, this kind of the CV, and it's being replaced by video CVs as well, more and more. But this sort of right to rectification is critical. And from a candidate, the whole thing about GDPR is, for the first time, it's really giving the candidate control over their data. So they're saying, I decided I don't want to apply for that job anymore. And some ATS systems will go, okay, well, you just hit this delete button, and it deletes them from the database. But that's not good, because I didn't say I'm not interested in your brand. I just don't want to apply for that job. So, from our vendor perspective, we've spent about 12 months working on GDPR compliance to make sure candidates can withdraw from an application, they can delete their data, they can see what's stored, you can push and request consent, you can see very clearly on the profile of the candidate whether consent has been given, yes or no. If it hasn't, click a button, system asks them for their consent. Okay? And this is 12 months worth of roadmap that we've been spending on this one legislation, and we work globally. So there's a lot of things that we need to be sort of focused on. And companies, if you're working multinationally, the problem is really compounded. So, this is always an interesting one. When I'm sort of presenting in front of an audience, where are you on your sort of journey? Have you got an applicant tracking system with all your data centrally located, easy to manage? Or are you where a lot of companies still are today, bit of technology here, bit of Excel there, bit of Outlook over there? So it's a challenge if you've got an ATS, because the question is your ATS managing your candidate data in a compliant way? You need to update your privacy policy. You need to, as I've explained, give the candidate some control over the data. And we spoke about this on our stand a few minutes ago with somebody. They said, we're using this system, but it's really difficult to archive candidates. So the recruiters have got this responsibility. And I'm going, okay, well, most companies, you've got a process sort of doing this. But archiving of data, you are not allowed now to sit on a pile of CVs going, they're our talent pool in case we ever need a really cool Java developer. You just can't do that. If you're not recruiting Java developers, and you haven't recruited a Java developer over 12 months, GDPR is going to be saying, well, do you really need those CVs? If you can't demonstrate a reason for that data, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And then this is where it gets really quite stressful. If you haven't got an applicant tracking system, you need to designate somebody within your business to handle all of those inbound requests. So imagine candidate goes through your process, they don't get hired, they're a bit pissed off, and they decide to go, I know, I'm going to call them up and ask them to delete all my data. If you can't do that at a click of a button, or if they can't do it themselves, somebody in your business is going to be manually handling those types of things. So, bringing it back, don't want to dive down the GDPR rabbit hole, but this is really critical, and it kind of underscores the point around if you, as a recruitment team, manage recruitment data, where does the responsibility sit? Is marketing going to step up and do it for you? Is your legal team going to come in and start deleting candidates? No, it's a problem. And this is what I'm saying. The technologies and the issues that you're facing is kind of getting more and more complex. And of course, if you've got disparate systems, is it efficient? And I haven't met a single recruiter who said that they're delighted with the fact they're having to use 8 different technologies. It's kind of just a means to an end, or it's kind of happened over time. But from an efficiency perspective, is it smooth? Is it fast? Is it streamlined? Is it optimized? Absolutely not. Your productivity suffers. So I had a meeting last week with a global consultancy, engineering type business, about 15,000 employees. We get on to the topic of compliance, a bit of GDPR, and they're using, and I'll name it, they're using Workday. And he said, I've got 1.5 FTEs deleting candidates one by one because we haven't worked out a way using our technology to purge candidate data. I mean, really interesting. 14,000 employees, 1.5 FTEs deleting candidate records. So obviously, depending on the size of your business, that's an issue with scale. But think about your own productivity. Is it efficient to toggle, tab, whatever it is on laptops nowadays, toggle between screens, cutting and pasting, data from an email into your applicant tracking system or whatever you're doing? Is it easy for you when you're using LinkedIn Recruiter to pull that profile and all the emails and the relationship that you've built with the candidate over LinkedIn into your ATS so you can manage it from there in a compliant way? In most cases, the answer is no. Okay, so you're not being efficient. And very rarely have I met a head of recruitment or a recruiter who said, hey, I just don't know what to do with myself. I've just got so much time on my hands. I'm quite happily sort of double data entering. And the other thing which is really, this is not new. Everybody knows that you should be promoting jobs from within. Everyone knows how important it is. But internal mobility, big companies I speak to, they're not thinking about internal mobility. They think they're problems finding great candidates. And I said, well, you might have them already in your business. So what are you doing? Oh, we've got this sort of shitty thing on SharePoint, or, HR's kicked off, kind of a cool referral program, but it's not linked into our systems. And, can you post a job internally, multinationally, in different languages to candidates within your business? Do you enable employees to put their hand up and create job alerts and say, I'm interested in these types of roles? It's not difficult. Many technologies support this. But if you're working across different systems, if in the UK you've got, Avature, and in the US you've got Taleo, and in India you've got Brass Ring, are those systems easily connected? So we also work with IKEA, and IKEA haven't solved this problem. Where's my microphone gone? IKEA hasn't solved this problem. They've got 4 applicant tracking systems. If you don't know much about IKEA, there's Inter-IKEA Group, kind of the brand, the sort of the nucleus core, and then they have 11 franchises, and these franchises buy the rights to operate under the IKEA brand in different markets. So Acano, headquartered in Luxembourg, they work in Mexico. They also have Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. So very complex business. So they've got 4 ATSs currently. So all that they want to do is promote jobs to their colleagues, their employees. So they're having to build a global portal and point all these different technologies. And that one portal is a big project to make it happen. So typically, in an environment where recruiters are having to struggle with all these disparate technologies, even in big companies who are spending the money and kind of investing in technology, mobility or internal mobility is really hard. It's not easy. And again, I said, think about things from a candidate's perspective. Think about being an employee. My best friend works for, well, he doesn't anymore, but he worked for Cisco. He was based in the UK. He wanted to relocate to California. Cisco, massive business, American HQ'd. I said, well, surely you just go on, do a quick search internally and sort of he goes, no, I've got no way of searching for jobs internally at Cisco. He goes, there is a place, but they only have jobs for a certain part of the business. I want to work for a different part of Cisco. Who isn't posting their jobs, I've got no visibility. And this guy was, at the time, this is going back about 6 years ago, he was one of 10 people globally who could really talk about smart cities. This guy was a super brainy guy, and he could work for many different companies. And do you know what he did? He left. He left. Can't find a job here. I'm going elsewhere. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. And this comes up an awful lot. When I sit down with recruiters and we sort of talk about, well, what's working well? We know what's not working because you're telling me it's not working, but what is working well? I don't know. So from a recruitment standpoint, being able to understand what's working well and what's not working so well is difficult, okay? Because guess what? None of us are reporting experts. Sometimes you bump into a recruiter who's pretty nifty at Excel, and they tend to be quite popular people in the business because they do all the Excel spreadsheets to try and turn this disparate data into something meaningful that somebody can take into a board meeting to justify what's going on and why they're investing, why they're spending. But this sort of stuff should be at a click of a button. And this is what I'm talking about productivity. It should be something you can get your hands on very, very easily. And if you are using technologies and tools, how easy is it to get the data out and mix it together? So, again, anecdotally, when I was working for another vendor, we had an analytics platform where Starbucks could mash up the data that they got from selling coffees, the data that they had on their employees, and other bits and pieces, and they were able to identify why certain Starbucks stores were not performing as well as others. And do you want to know what it was? It was really quite bizarre. It was one manager had trained people inefficiently and they were wasting too much milk. I mean, just bizarre. But guess what? Recruitment, talent, learning, that sort of stuff, that little pocket area actually turned into defining flagship status for stores and how you train and execute to drive revenue. Okay? So analytics, super sexy, boring, your decision, but it's quite useful for recruiters. So I've talked about recruiting, having to deal with all these different technologies, candidate behaviors changing, the pressures internally, you're still having to hire people, you've got to do it faster and quicker for less money, using social media, whatever it may be. This is not just a recruitment challenge. The fun thing is, your HR colleagues have been through all this about 10 years ago. Sort of like 2006, 2007, there was these fledgling talent management suites starting to take off. I used to work for one, and you kind of have a learning management system, plus performance management, plus career and succession planning. If you were super lucky, you could do compensation and market compensation and start doing stack ranking, all that sort of stuff. And what they did, they took all of this stuff and they went, and they just mashed it up, and they said, yeah, it's called a talent management suite. And everyone goes, oh, I need to buy a talent management suite. And that's what they did. And they ran off and they bought talent management suites. So, simple, isn't it? Just add recruitment to your talent management suite. There it is. Off it goes. Another little module, switch it on, sign on the dotted line. Everything's knitted together so beautifully, it's all fine. No, that's not how it's working right now. And so let me give you some insight to why it's not working. HR systems are a system of record. It's about who do I have working for my company, what's their name, their date of birth, their salary, where do they get paid, and that's it. Okay? Talent management solutions are a little bit more sophisticated, but they're always looking internally. It's just about the people you know. And you've got complete control over the people you know. They're your employees. If you mandate all your employees need to log in and fill out this data, they won't do it, but a lot of them will. The difference with recruiting is you're dealing with the big, wide unknown. And an anecdote which springs to mind was I was talking to Balfour Beatty many years ago. If anybody's in the room from Balfour Beatty, put your hand up. No? You are? Okay. Doesn't change my story. You've heard of Balfour Beatty, but you're not from Balfour Beatty. So Balfour Beatty, the head of recruitment, wanted an applicant tracking system. And I was like, hi, I can do an applicant tracking system. Great, we want to buy it. They lost the argument internally. They said, look, we've got Oracle, we've rolled it out. Oracle does iRecruit, it's a recruitment module, it's not going to cost us any money. Sorry, you can't have budget to buy a recruitment technology. Oh dear, I scurry off, do other things. 12 months later, the head of talent acquisition at Balfour Beatty calls me up and he goes, hey, we want to talk to you again. Oh, really? How's it gone with iRecruit? Not great. I go, why not? Well, we had to go and buy £150,000 worth of servers to host our career site, and we didn't realize that. Okay, so how's your site been going? We didn't get it live. So if you allow HR, the CIO, internal people to try and dictate to you that recruiting is just like performance management or something or core HR, please be prepared to have a counter argument, because it's not. Very few people who manage talent processes are used to launching a recruitment campaign and getting 1 million applications. So I used to work with Royal Mail. So we were like getting Christmas cards at Christmas. Royal Mail needs to hire 26,000 people to do the sorting before Christmas. And I worked with them, we put the site up, we were running everything, and they had 1 million applications to drill down to 26,000 hires. And then the smart thing was, they then built talent pools and they re-engage, because a lot of the people who do sorting are people who are at university, so they come home, do a bit of sorting locally, and then go back to university. So Royal Mail got smart, they re-employed a lot of the good people the following year until they scurried off into their careers. So talent acquisition, it's complicated, and it's very, very different to sort of internal stuff. And going back to thinking like a candidate, thinking about how we all of us, probably use eBay. If you're not using eBay, you're probably looking for your next house on Rightmove, or you're on Facebook, or you're on LinkedIn, or you're on Instagram. Everybody's got experience of using these types of technologies. If your process today requires the candidate to create a username and a password and fill out a lengthy application form, and there are vendors, and I won't name one because I see somebody in the room is using them. When I went to apply to good old Woolworths back in the day, it said, welcome to our application process. There's 8 steps. And I thought, 8 steps? All right, I've got 15 minutes. I can battle through this. Went through it. Step 4 had 15 sub-steps. I got 45 minutes into that process, gave up, phoned up the head of resourcing at Woolworths and said, are you having a challenge getting good talent? He went, yeah. I said, let's speak. This is not good behavior. They will quit mid-application if you're not making it super, super quick. Because guess what? Our attention span's getting shorter. Why do I have to spend an hour applying for a job when I can buy a TV in 3 seconds and it's delivered with AO.com the next day, whatever it may be? And this mobile stuff, I can see there's smartphones around the room. My dad doesn't have a smartphone. He's 75. He's not interested. Tried to give him one, not interested. But my dad's not, looking for employment anymore. The people who are out there who you're trying to engage, the candidates, they probably do have a phone which is probably mobile friendly. They've probably got a data plan. They probably can surf and apply for jobs. And even when we're speaking to care homes, when we're speaking to retailers, when we're speaking to organizations who they go, oh, yeah, this technology stuff, not interested. People walk in the store and they apply. I go, look. What do people do on their breaks? Well, they will scurry outside, have a cigarette, and they go on their phones. Yeah, they could be applying for a job. And the question is, are you making it easy for candidates to apply? And this is where 5 years ago, companies were really struggling. They went, we've got a lovely, beautiful careers website, but it doesn't work on a mobile device. Up pops the web designer's hand. Oh, you need a responsive design website. I can build one of those. So you might end up having 2 websites. Yeah, it becomes more complicated because the behavior is changing. So this is why I put to you that recruitment needs a suite. You need to be savvy, you need to have the data in one place, and you need to be able to deliver a really good experience. And the thing is, you're dealing with, a huge amount of scale. If you're not in the Royal Mail, RBS, Barclays, HSBC, Capita, end of the spectrum where you're hiring thousands of people a year, typically your team is, smaller if you're doing less recruitment, and it's still a battle. As I said, nobody says I've got too many recruitment people working in my business and we're twiddling our thumbs. Everyone's stretched. Everyone's looking at how can I make one recruiter manage more requisitions in a meaningful way to deliver value to the business? Anybody want to guess the average number of requisitions a recruiter in the UK has to handle? Shout it. How many? Very close. 15. Yeah, 15. Yeah. So depending on what they are, that's still quite a bit. I used to struggle as a recruiter because you're doing a project over here, project for them, project there. I was never an internal recruiter, and 4 or 5 projects, I was falling apart. It's tough. And when you really sit back and you think about, what do I touch? So going back to that point around 15 different resources, 8 different types of technologies, when you look at your recruitment function, what do you do? Because it's not just about posting a job, moving them through the process, because people are thinking, we want to do video interviewing. Engineering wants to do some coding tests. Our marketing team wants to have a look at some previous work. We're a business who we now need to, because we're regulated by the FCA, because even though we're a retailer, we sell phone insurance, you need to do background checks, criminal records checks, security checks, assessments. So when you actually look at the whole element of recruiting, and you start, and there's Ian Hamilton is doing a presentation later today on chatbots. Anybody got a chatbot on their career site today? No? It's coming. It's pretty cool. I was at Social Talent, did a meetup in London a couple of weeks ago, and there was a guy who worked for a care home provider, and they put a chatbot onto their career site, and it was super cool. I mean, it really was from an experience way, because they were asking you questions, and you're giving some feedback. You don't feel that you're chatting to technology, and what it's doing, it's routing you and screening you through a process, and then deep links you straight into a process step. And this stuff, not everybody's going to want to do it, but this guy was recognized around this project, and he's just got one of the best recruitment jobs I think has been going in the UK. So sometimes working with technology, being bold, stepping out and doing something different can really make a difference. Anyway, I digress. So there's a lot of complexity here. Just a quick show of hands. Who uses job boards? Okay. Who posts their jobs on Facebook? Okay, so about half of you. Who has a LinkedIn recruiter seat? Okay, expensive, aren't they? Who does reference checks, or is that something that the other team does? Okay. Yeah. Any assessment tools? You doing assessments? Yeah. Okay. Is it easy? Is it easy to take the test results and match it up with your candidate and progress the candidates? Hands up if you've got it completely sorted and it's all fully automated and all you have to do is press a button and a hire pops out the other end. No. Yeah, it's very, very difficult. But this whole piece, thinking about I need to attract people, select them and hire them, is becoming very technology driven. There are solutions out there which can help. Does technology always help? No. There's a lot of discussion around artificial intelligence and sort of, machine learning in recruitment. Nobody wants to be screened by a machine. Okay? As a candidate, if I said to you, would you feel good about applying for a job and being screened by a machine? You'd probably say, well, no. But you don't know the dark side of the flip side of that a recruiter spends on average 6 seconds reviewing a CV. 6 seconds. Open it up, skim read down. They've worked for Walmart. Yeah, I'm interested. Well, I can't see any retailers on there. Off they go. Not interested. No, yes, maybe, buckets. So it's becoming more complex, and you need help. So this is the marketplace is beginning to sort of weld this stuff together and come up with solutions. And back in November last year, IDC, so you've got Gartner IDC, Forrester, Constellation, a whole bunch of sort of analysts who get paid lots of money to advise companies on where things are going and the trends, which technology providers are good, bad, or indifferent. They, for the first time, assessed the marketplace for a talent acquisition suite, a recruitment suite. Not talent management plus recruitment, not a module. This is just things which are focused on recruiting. And they look at, what are your capabilities and how smart are you? Are you ahead of the curve? Are you really helping companies transform what they're doing? And we were quite chuffed because we've only really been in the market for 2 years. So we're pleased about that. But you can see, there's choices up in that sort of leader quadrant for sure. And they're all quite different. And they've all got there. I mean, if some of those, it's taken 10 years to get into that leaders quadrant. It's not an easy journey to be reviewed by an analyst up in that top right quadrant. So, trying to sort of bring this together, there's kind of a new playbook, a new rule book for recruiting. And some of this you're going to buy, you're going to go, yeah, I'm totally with you, Rob. Other things might grate a little, might not kind of feel right. So I'll gauge your response at the end. But mobile first. Do you genuinely believe that candidates are applying and using mobiles? If you don't, they absolutely are. So through our platform, we can see whether people are applying through a browser or a mobile device. I joined this company 2 years ago. It was at about 35-40% were coming through mobile. Certain sectors, and we're in North America and Europe, etc. So you're looking just across globally, that's increased by 50% in 2 years. Okay, it's absolutely, technology's there, candidate behavior this is what they do. They need to be able to engage with you through mobile. This is a bit geeky, this one, because when I look at the applicant tracking systems that you may use, can I just, quick show of hands, who's got an applicant tracking system? So about 30% of you, 32%, just put his hand up. So when applicant tracking systems kicked off, and I was there kind of at the beginning, sort of 98, 99, 2000, iGrass was launched, PeopleClick, which is now called PeopleFluent, came to market, Brass Ring, which is now IBM Connexa, Taleo, which is part of Oracle, which was called RecruitSoft. They were built to effectively take the administration of recruitment away from paper and become an electronic filing cabinet. That's what it did. And at that time, it was about moving people through a process like widgets on a production line. There was no mobile phones. Well, there was, but they weren't smart. You couldn't really surf on them. And if you had if you were browsing and had a colored screen in the late 90s, you were right on the edge. But these applicant tracking systems are not thinking about video interviewing, assessment test integration, job boards, social media, mobile. They just didn't exist when they were built. So roll forward to now, these, the legacy, the founding fathers who've created this industry are really struggling to adapt and compete. And I'll put it to you that the big names will not be around in 3 years' time. Okay? Gone. The rate of change and the replacement which is happening with legacy technology, with modern technology, is escalating, and it's getting very, very steep. And this open architecture comment is just about, if you are out there thinking about, how do I solve this problem, how do I drive more efficiency, ask them, is it easy to integrate? Have you got an open architecture? Because we've all said that we're using assessment tests, job boards, social media, mobile career sites, etc. If you don't have a platform which is open, you're unable to bring everything together, and you're unable to have a clear view of your data. Social at the core. How easy is it to use your technology? Most people say, yeah, I'll name them, we got Taleo, they've been rolled out globally. My hiring managers hate it. So this was Jacobs Dow Egberts in October when I met them in Amsterdam. They're a coffee company, 14,000 employees, new global head of talent acquisition called Narina. She said, look, I need some help. I've got the responsibility to hire a lot of people. My hiring managers are not part of the process. They refuse to touch, in this instance, Taleo. So because it's not easy, it's not social, it's not people that can get their hands on and really sort of touch it. And this leads into this sort of topic that I've said a few times about it has to be simple to use. If I'm a hiring manager and I recruit 15 people a year, so on average, 1 and a bit per month, I'm not a hardcore recruiter. I don't use your recruitment technology every day like your recruiters do. So this is where the process breaks down. Hey, we've invested in a fantastic ATS, but it's hard to use. So hiring managers go outside of the process, start using agencies, can't work out how they review CVs and give you the feedback you need. Okay, like I said, I'm an ex-recruiter. I know exactly how it feels. So talked about, these are the sort of challenge, the market's changing, it's become kind of complex, process hasn't changed, but technology and tools have. What should you look for if you are considering about moving away from where you are, addressing some of the challenges, or even for the first time going to market? So I wanted to give you some sort of advice and some food for thought. So I mentioned an intuitive user interface. It's kind of software geeky application language. I mean, it needs to be easy to use. It needs to be intuitive. And this is where, again, a lot of the providers out there that you might be looking at have kind of fallen down because they're thinking about, HR, they're thinking about recruiters. They're not thinking about candidates. How do we make it super easy for people to get into your database? And then the counter-argument is, we don't want loads of crap in our database. They might not be crap in 2 years. So why don't you just get them in, start building a relationship, nurture them, start targeting, pathing them down a route. So it needs to be compelling for the candidates. You guys, the recruiters, it needs to be a technology that brings everything together for you, and it needs to be easy to use. Otherwise, guess what? Recruiters don't use recruitment technology. I see that all the time. What have you got? Got the XYZ system, what's happening? Recruiters hate it. It's been forced on us, and we absolutely hate it. Hiring managers need to be able to use it. And this is an example. It's our example of the sorts of things that we've got in a single platform. It's a lot. You don't have to use it all. You just activate and start using what you want to use. And when you're talking to vendors, and as a recruiter, you're going, has it got screening questions? Is it easy to apply? Does it link into Facebook? What about LinkedIn Recruiter? Yeah, great. There's some really big questions to be asked about. Is the fundamental architecture of the partner you're talking to modern? And from a SmartRecruiters perspective, I just want to sort of give you an example. And this is an example that I use because we're kind of leading the way in this area. Cornerstone have launched a marketplace. Lumess have just launched a marketplace. It's not exclusive, but we've got just shy of 400 complementary technologies pre-integrated with our platform. So you go in, you go, okay, I need to have an assessment test. You're in your candidate record. You click on assessment. You click, and you can just buy a test. Even if you're not integrated with them, you can buy a test through the platform or a video interview. Or if you've got partnerships and they're in our marketplace, it all comes together. So I'm just wrapping up for time, couple of minutes. When you're having these conversations internally and they go, hey, yeah, you guys are spending a fortune, really good bit of research by Boston Consulting Group, recruitment, out of all the processes, talent management, performance management, learning and development, recruitment delivers the biggest impact to your bottom line. Stand behind that. You should be asking for more money, because you deliver the most value. Okay, so it's a little bit old. Nobody's done a survey similar, but this was a landmark piece of survey. And if you're speaking to people across your business and they go, kind of recruitment's over there, just go, hey, look, Steve Jobs thought it was kind of important, and he built a kind of good company, which is still going after his death. The most important job. So, thank you very much for your time.